This video is brought to you by Squarespace. When you think of an influential digital cinema camera, what do you think of first? Chances are that you are thinking of the Red One, which might be the digital camera which inspired some of the most radical developments in the industry, pushing everyone in the game to step it up a notch, especially in regards to 4K recording capabilities. But looking not much further back in time, we see other pioneers in digital cinema, one of them being the Thomson Grass Valley's Viper FilmStream camera, a mouthful for sure, but a cinema camera which brought significant improvements into the digital realm and which released during a time in which most cinematographers were more keen to shooting on film. This is probably our most highly requested episode in our Abandoned series, and it rightly should be. It's one of the key cameras that helped bring about the digital cinema camera industry, but of course receives a lot less recognition than Red's one camera. So what makes this odd relic of a digital cinema camera so special? What does FilmStream even mean? And was it even really abandoned in the first place? Find out today on our Abandoned camera series. I know you lovers of 8K cameras will be disappointed in today's episode since it's a lowly 1080 camera.
You and me, right now, we're having it out. Let's go. Come on, come on.
But you can dry those tears in resolution by making your own site dedicated to obnoxiously large resolutions with today's sponsor, Squarespace. Squarespace is the perfect place to post video, photos, and promote your next big camera project. With easy-to-design templates that are customizable to your specific needs, Squarespace is a great option for those needing a professional site to attract clients who are desperately looking for someone who shoots 8K footage. With super sleek, easy-to-customize templates, you could have your site up, running, and looking professional within a couple of hours. Squarespace seriously is one of the easiest places to build your website, with a multitude of templates and features to help out the everyday creative who just needs a good-looking site to show off their work, book new clients, and showcase their latest projects. So head right now to squarespace.com/framevoyager with a link in the description to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain using the code FrameVoyager. Now, back to some abandoned cameras. Delving into this abandoned camera, one might get dizzy from trying to make any sense of the names that float around it. Thomson, Grass Valley, FilmStream. Who exactly made the Viper FilmStream camera? Who is Thomson and where does Grass Valley come into the picture? Let us first take a look at Thomson, a French multinational general electronics manufacturer. The company was later rebranded to Technicolor, not to be confused with the Technicolor process in film, and rather recently it changed its name again to Vantiva. Even though Thomson comes first in this cinema camera's name, Thomson did not develop this device themselves. They rather went company shopping and happened to stumble across a research and development company around 2001 named Grass Valley. The company was founded by Dr. Donald Hare in 1959 in Grass Valley, California, after his time at DGC Hare Company came to an end. Back then, he named his company Grass Valley Group. Before immersing themselves into the digital cinema camera realm, Grass Valley became experts in the broadcast world, developing various products like video amplifiers and broadcasting solutions. Their work left a significant impact, which is why this company, together with its parent company, Tektronix, were given various Emmy Awards for their influence in the industry. Nowadays, the company still stays true to various video and production technologies. It not only offers cameras as products, but also various equipment that can come in handy for video production and distribution, like converters, storage-related items, replay systems, and software solutions. And oddly enough, Atomos seems to be either acquiring pieces of Grass Valley or working with them to create a new sensor that they've announced this year, which is a story for another day. But this makes the Viper FilmStream a unique camera system in Grass Valley's history, as it not only aided crews in TV production and broadcast, but cinematographers were also this camera's target audience as well. But all this culminated in the announcement of the Viper FilmStream camera in 2002 at NAB. And unfortunately, we really tried to find some footage at NAB in 2002 of this camera, but the first time we really see this camera at NAB, or even anyone talking about it on video, is at NAB in 2003 by none other than Nonya Nerd.
Also on display at the Thomson Grass Valley booth was a Viper FilmStream camera. It can shoot in high definition and outputs 10-bit 444 RGB. For storage, the camera can record directly onto this hard drive array or into these memory bricks that can be mounted onto the camera for easy mobility in field shoots. Memory bricks. Now there's a concept.
And if you were keeping track from our previous episode, you'd know that this camera debuted around the same time the Sony Cine Alta line did, the Panavision Genesis, and the Dalsa Origin all came out. All of these cameras were the building blocks of what would become the digital cinema camera industry, and a foreshadowing of the Red One, Arri D20, and Arri Alexa that had yet to make it out onto the scene. Yet it did have some advantages over its early peers, namely its ability to preview takes immediately after they were shot, which David Fincher is more than happy to point out as being incredibly dumb on the Panavision Genesis for its inability to play back files.
It's 35 pounds. Camera is this big. And on the top of it, it looks like a film magazine.
The recorder attached to it the same way that a mag would attach to it, so on the top or on the back.
If I want to see what just got shot, does it play back off that? They said, no, you would never touch that. It's like your original negative. So let me see if I got this straight. You guys spent how many millions of dollars developing a camera with Sony, and I can't play the HD back to look at it because that's the negative?
Now, even though the Viper FilmStream could play back files, it had a very unusual way of playing back the takes you recorded, and that had to do with the FilmStream portion of the camera, which, speaking of, what exactly does FilmStream mean?
Thompson Grass Valley was showing their Viper FilmStream camera and workflow in operation. Using this device, the data stream originating from the Viper FilmStream could be instantly stored, backed up on a second drive, and later ingested as a digital intermediate through its swappable hard drives or via this data backup tape. The unit also allowed for playback to a dual HD SDI monitor. Operators could add metadata on the fly and control its operation via their pocket PC. Now that's innovation.
So FilmStream does stand for something in the end. It was a trademarked media transportation method by Thomson, but it was based on open technology which anyone could make use of. Logarithmic quantization curves and the dual link HD SDI recording method with which 444 RGB 10-bit video was captured could be freely replicated by other camera manufacturers without any fears of a volatile copyright troll hitting them with a lawsuit for replicating the FilmStream system. Red code raw. One drawback of using the FilmStream mode was that the camera was constantly tethered up to a digital field recorder as it needed to make use of dual link HD SDI cables, or alternatively a thick multi-core cable. But back in this time, it was only a small price to pay for uncompressed log footage, which has not been put through any video signal processing. At least though, you did have like 40-meter long cables which were available for the Viper FilmStream, so the crews did have considerable length to work with. You just had cables. But there was a catch. Because there was no video processing applied to the recorded footage from the camera in FilmStream mode, the color rendition of the raw footage was flat and especially green. Green to the point where you'd feel like you'd messed up, potentially greener than the nice crispy footage from the abandoned Fran 8K. It was that bad. Thomson and Grass Valley, unlike the makers of the Fran 8K, were aware of this as they made it clear in their informational brochures that color correction is needed in post. And for monitoring purposes, the Viper offered a color temperature switch, which would color correct the footage for preview purposes, but it wouldn't burn the colors into the recordings, thankfully. Similar to how one can preview a scene using LUTs on more modern digital cinema cameras today. Luckily, we did manage to get a hold of some footage and stills that have been captured on the Viper FilmStream camera, and here are some examples of the unprocessed output of the FilmStream mode and what it looked like. And again, here is the same shot, only with color correction and grading in post. Many thanks to Darren Orange for reaching out and providing us with not only the footage to showcase this, but also correcting us on a lot of the finer points about the Viper FilmStream and with some of his own first-hand experiences filming with the Viper FilmStream.
Fletcher in Chicago had it. Randomly, it showed up in their inventory briefly. And I think they had it for about 3 or 4 months. We were originally going to shoot with the DVX or HVX 200s because we knew we could rent many of those. So in retrospect, I don't know if we should have stayed with the HVX 200 and had more than one camera. But we had basically the budget worked out to where we could rent this camera and use it. So we did. And there's actually quite a learning curve to it because unlike traditional video cameras, it was like one of the first, I guess it was the first camera I ever worked with that required you to definitely underexpose. And that's not something filmmakers or videographers back then did.
Around 2005, the Viper FilmStream had a little bit of credit as the best digital cinema camera of its time, delivering an unparalleled image quality with 444 log high-definition video recording capabilities, enabling everyone to make use of a digital workflow which simplified the editing, color grading, and delivery of the footage significantly. And most important of all, the camera was comfortable to use even for film lovers. The CCD sensors inside the FilmStream also had vertical subpixels in it, which meant that it could record in a variety of aspect ratios without a loss of definition, depending on what subpixels are used. But as you may have noticed from our other episodes in this series, companies going with CCD sensors over CMOS sensors seem to play a bit of a role in their demise. Compared to modern digital cameras though, the Viper features a rather limited selection of available shooting modes. For instance, a 3-level selectable gain for ISO, white balance, and also some formats which we seldom need in progressive scan future. As you may have guessed, the camera can shoot interlaced video, which in the early 2000s was commonplace for TV broadcasts and home video. 1080i could capture 50 or 59.94 Hz video, which was compliant to both PAL and NTSC broadcasting standards. The progressive video counterparts were only able to shoot around 2398 frames per second to around 29.97 frames per second, with the 720p mode even managing to capture 59.94 frames per second. Interlaced video might seem like an odd format for a cinema camera, but remember that Grass Valley had their roots in broadcast, and the FilmStream was as suitable for TV production as it was for cinema. Anyways, while interlaced recording modes and a maximum resolution of 1080p in a camera are less sought after nowadays, global shutter still remains a universally beloved feature, and the Viper delivers in the global shutter department, meaning that a movie frame recorded on the CCD sensor is exposed simultaneously instead of line by line like a rolling shutter sensor would. Speaking of shutter, the Viper has a rather unusual feature which is seldom seen in digital cinema cameras, which would be a mechanical rotary shutter, which we have also seen a few other digital cinema camera manufacturers like Atom use as well for their digital cinema cameras. Now here comes an interesting detail. The sensor of the Viper FilmStream camera consists of an optical section and an identical storage area which is permanently shrouded in darkness and separated from the optical block. Once enough of the charge was collected in the photo sites of the optical area, the rotary shutter closed, blocking the light, and the charge is then transported into storage, effectively eliminating smear artifacts in the final image, after which the rotary shutter opens again and the cycle starts anew. If the electronic shutter isn't being used, the shutter angle is fixed at 312 degrees, and additionally, the mechanical shutter can also be completely disabled. But why would a cinematographer choose to disable the rotary shutter when it eliminates artifacting in the final image?
Yeah, it was definitively better to use the mechanical, especially if you're going to shoot film. Otherwise, you do get that kind of like held charge, like that CCD smearing or whatnot. The benefit also of CCD, speaking of which, why I think it also looks good. You do have global shutter.
Exposure, like all of us know, is a creative tool one can mess around with in order to get a desired effect. In the case of the FilmStream, one could achieve a maximum shutter angle of 353 degrees, and as long as no highlights are present in the image, the final product will not contain any smearing artifacts. Turning the mechanical shutter off could also come in handy if more motion blur is needed, or in order to simulate super motion speeds by filming a scene at maximum exposure settings and using every odd frame of the resulting video, which would be like a 12 frames per second video. The same could even be done for lower frame rates. Maybe this is why some cinematographers at this time found the Viper FilmStream camera especially appealing, because it outperformed film in the dark.
New companies began to develop high-definition cameras, and other Hollywood films followed Lucas's lead. Michael Mann's Collateral used the Thomson Viper, an HD camera that outperformed film at shooting in dark environments.
Michael wanted to see into the night, and that at that point was really, best done with these digital cameras tweaked up and pushed to really sort of push the boundaries of what the digital was capable of. Collateral was interesting in that it was supposed to look exactly the way it looked. When you look outside at night, you don't see black night. You see aura around the city of green and magenta and purple lights, and it's just like haze in the sky, and you just see all these crazy colors. And the only way to really capture that at that time was digitally.
The Viper FilmStream was used in many well-known movies, including Miami Vice, Public Enemies, The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, and Collateral, but it's perhaps most known for, or most memorialized in its use in David Fincher's film Zodiac.
We got involved with Zodiac, having worked on a number of commercials and music videos with David, and really were a test bed for a lot of the things that David wanted to do, both digitally and using CG, different techniques. In a lot of ways, he kind of trained me with how he wants to work, and looking at Zodiac, there's some things that were just a really good fit and we'd done together before, and so it made sense.
David Fincher was one of the early directors who really embraced digital cinema cameras early on, experimenting with a digital workflow on contract work before even delving into the filming of Zodiac. Jumping from film into digital, not only the production and post-production workflows changed, but also the actor's job was impacted by the switch to digital. Being able to record onto hard drive mags and digital field recorders, and in addition, having the ability to review a performance right after it was shot has a profound effect on how a movie is filmed. The maximum recording time has been significantly increased from 10 minutes per film mag to an hour of continuous shooting or longer with hard drives. Digital dailies could easily be recorded on tape and reviewed later, and a preview could also be outputted to remote monitors live. So after a take was recorded, the actors can actually gauge their own performances right after they were captured, and more people than just the camera operator could immediately view what is being recorded and spot issues before it was too late. And while this all does sound super normal, at this time, this was super revolutionary in the industry. And while for many these changes were seen as creative liberation, some others were less than pleased, with objections not only coming from film-loving cinematographers, who we love here, but also from actors who appreciated the 10-minute bursts of action rather than the hours worth of takes.
Robert Downey actually came up to me and he said, I can't work like this. I never get to go to my trailer. I never get my shit together. I'm on my feet 14 hours a day. I'm shooting all the time. He actually left mason jars of urine on the set, just like over in the corner and stuff. Just he would go off and he would pee and then he'd bring it back. And it was this like form of protest.
Some resistance aside, the Viper was continuously used throughout the Zodiac's production, with the exception of some slow motion murder sequences for which a film camera was used. While Zodiac isn't a VFX flick, you could say, it did make use of visual and digital effects. One of the most challenging VFX shots in the movie was a shot of the San Francisco waterfront, as the waterfront today looks radically different to how it looked in the 60s. Digital effects needed to recreate a VFX composite, so the Viper FilmStream was used to collect reference footage, and over the movie's production, the scene was detailed and finalized further. Another interesting use of the FilmStream can be seen in the Zodiac's weirdest sequence of them all, in which a virtual camera tracks a cab in the center of the frame throughout its journey. To get the passerby on the sidewalk and the final composite, digital effects set the FilmStream up on a roof and shot their co-workers walking around on blue screens, which have been laid out. Then they have been replaced and tracked into the scene, resulting in a convincing composite. Even an entire scene was remade with the actors in front of the blue screens and computer-generated imagery in order to avoid a reshoot on location. Virtual sets were also being used, with blue screens blocking out a set so 3D artists could replace the scenery in post or add CG houses and vehicles into a neighborhood. Digital cinema cameras like the Viper FilmStream lend themselves to these kinds of shoots, as acquiring the footage for one is cost-effective due to post-production being majorly simplified by not having to deal with film digitization, or much worse, matte and roto work on the film itself. Speaking of post-production, once the editors got the footage, Zodiac was edited in its entirety on the Final Cut NLE, with multicam editing being made easy. The digital workflow here was convenient, and it opened doors to people who previously might not have considered entering the cinema sphere, and it also marked the beginning of what the future of editing and post-production would turn out to look like.
With this movie, the attitude that we've taken is, okay, we've shot the setups, we have the coverage, we have the pieces that we feel we need, and now we need to kind of sift through it and find the humanity of it.
Our whole mission with this was to think about the post-production aspect of it in a completely new way. Be creative. Use the tools that are out there that you can just buy on a website or go to a store, get, and use those. Why do you have to have all this specialized equipment? You don't.
But one question so far is yet to be answered. For being an almost 20-year-old camera, the 1080p output of the Viper does look beautiful. But why was this camera abandoned or quickly made obsolete in this era when so many people in the industry adored this device and were learning to create the modern VFX and workflows that we enjoy today? Well, as is usually the answer, this early on in digital cinema history, there was a newcomer to the industry who would soon take it by storm and change absolutely everything.
I am Locutus of Borg. Resistance is futile.
When Zodiac finally released, it was May of 2007, the year in which Red was about to disrupt the industry with their innovative 4K camera, the Red 1, which not only reduced the potential mess of cables one would have been using with the FilmStream system, but the Red 1 also smashed the specifications of Grass Valley's cinema camera. Why be content with 1080p if you could have 4K and high frame rate recording capabilities? And on top of that, Red could record compressed raw footage internally, while the 444 log data stream coming out of the FilmStream needed to be fed into an external recorder. Thomson Grass Valley's camera was well used and well respected, but it eventually was left behind in the digital cinema arms race. But it would be remembered in 2017 winning scientific and technical awards from the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences. It sucks. But to take a look on the bright side, at least it did have a preview feature, something that the Panavision Genesis, a system that was released after the Viper FilmStream, was not capable of, as we've heard from David Fincher.
Camera is this big, and on the top of it, it looks like a film magazine. Does it play back off that? They said, no, you would never touch that. It's like your original negative.